Maya Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching Jupiter's great red spot swirl in the distance. The coffee in her hands had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. At 42, she had seen enough wars to know what peace looked like. This was it. Humans had finally learned to talk instead of fight. The year 2087 had brought humanity together like never before. The Global Unity Accord meant that when nations disagreed, they sat at tables instead of sending soldiers. Maya's job as a military advisor had become almost ceremonial. She trained security forces and managed supply lines, but real combat seemed like a thing of the past. "Another quiet day in paradise," said Captain Ben Hayes as he joined her at the window. Ben was 10 years younger than Maya, with an easy smile and the kind of optimism that came from never seeing real war. He had been her friend for 3 years now, ever since arriving at New Geneva. "Maybe too quiet," Maya replied, though she did not know why she said it. Ben laughed. "You sound like you miss the action. But look around, Maya. We have colonies on 6 moons. Trade routes that span the solar system, and the last major conflict was 15 years ago. Humanity finally grew up." Maya nodded, but something felt wrong. In her 20 years of military service, she had learned to trust her instincts. Today, those instincts were screaming. The alarm broke, the peaceful morning like a hammer through glass. Red lights flashed across the station as emergency broadcasts filled every screen. Maya and Ben ran to the command center, where dozens of technicians worked frantically at their stations. The main display showed something that made Maya's blood freeze. Ships. Massive ships that blotted out the stars themselves. "How many?" Maya asked. Lieutenant Danny Clark, the station's communications officer. "Over 300 spread across the entire solar system," Danny replied, his voice shaking. "They appeared simultaneously over Earth, Mars, Titan, Europa, and every major human settlement. No warning, no prior contact. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. They looked like black metal cathedrals floating in space, each one larger than the biggest human station. They moved with impossible grace, positioning themselves perfectly over every population center." "Are they responding to our communications?" Ben asked. "Sir, they just started broadcasting," Danny said, adjusting his headset. "It's coming through on all frequencies in every human language." The voice that filled the command center was calm, almost pleasant. It spoke perfect English with no accent, as if it had been studying human speech for years. "People of Earth and its colonies. No, we are the Zelkari. Your species has reached a level of development that requires our attention. Yeah, 72. Ours to surrender completely to our authority. This is not a negotiation. Comply or face eradication. We will begin accepting surrender terms in 1 hour." The message repeated in Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, and dozens of other languages. Version was flawless. It's delivered by the same emotionless voice. Maya watched as the command center erupted into controlled chaos. Officers made calls to Earth, to Mars, to every human outpost in the solar system. The responses were all the same. Surrender negotiations would begin immediately. "They want to meet with our diplomatic corps on Luna Base," Ben said, reading reports from his tablet. "President Morrison is assembling a team of our best negotiators." "Of course he is," Maya muttered. "What does that mean?" Maya turned to study the alien ships on the display. "Ben, in your opinion, why would a species with this level of technology give us 72 hours to surrender? Maybe they're civilized. Maybe they believe in giving other species a chance. Or maybe they want to identify all our military assets before they destroy them." Ben frowned. "Maya, you're being paranoid. Look at these ships. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it right now. The fact that they're talking means they want a peaceful solution." Maya began walking toward her quarters. "Where are you going?" Ben called after her. "To get my rifle." "Maya, wait. The surrender talks haven't even started yet. Give diplomacy a chance." She stopped and turned back to face him. "Ben, how many wars have you studied?" "Several. The Resource Wars, the Mars Independence Conflict, the Belt Rebellion." "And how did they all end?" With negotiated settlements? Diplomatic solutions. That's why we have the Unity Accord. Maya nodded slowly. Those were human wars, Ben. Humans fighting other humans. We understand each other. We have the same basic needs, the same fears. But these Zelkari just gave us an ultimatum with a deadline. That's not how you start negotiations. That's how you demand surrender. She continued toward her quarters, with Ben following close behind. Let's say you're right, he said. What can we possibly do against ships like that? Maya opened her weapons locker and pulled out her service rifle. It was an older model, reliable and well-maintained. She had carried it through the Belt Rebellion, the last real fighting she had seen. Ben, what do you know about asymmetric warfare? Not much. It wasn't covered in the Academy. Of course it wasn't. The Academy teaches modern warfare, clean warfare. But asymmetric warfare is what happens when a smaller force fights a larger. One, it's messy, it's brutal, and it requires you to think differently than your enemy. Maya checked her rifle and began loading magazines. These Zelkari have advanced technology, but they're following a pattern. They announce themselves, they give a deadline, they expect surrender. That tells me they've done this before, probably many times. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe, just maybe, they've never encountered a species that refused to surrender. Ben sat down heavily in Maya's chair. Maya, be realistic. Even if you're right, even if they plan to kill us all anyway, what can a few humans with rifles do against ships like that? Maya smiled grimly. Probably nothing. But here's what I learned in the Belt Rebellion, Ben. Sometimes the point isn't to win. Sometimes the point is to make the other side pay such a high price that they think twice before trying it again. The next 24 hours passed quickly. Reports came in from across the solar system. Earth's government was preparing comprehensive surrender terms. Mars Colony had elected to join the negotiations. Titan Base was discussing the transfer of their mining operations to Zelkari control. Maya spent the time preparing. She studied the alien ships through the station's telescopes, looking for weaknesses. She reviewed the station's defensive capabilities, which were minimal. New Geneva was a civilian colony with only basic security systems. But Maya had spent her career finding ways to fight with whatever was available. The station had mining lasers, cargo vessels, and industrial equipment. More importantly, it had people. Maya, Ben said, finding her in the engineering section. The surrender ceremony is tomorrow. President Morrison is broadcasting it live. Across all human settlements, this whole thing will be over peacefully. Maya looked up from the mining laser she was examining. Ben, have you been monitoring the alien ships? Of course. They're maintaining position over every major settlement. Have you noticed what they're scanning? Ben frowned. Scanning. For the past day, they've been running detailed scans of every human facility. But not residential areas, Ben. Military installations, defense platforms, weapons manufacturing sites. They're making a list. The realization hit Ben like a physical blow. They're identifying targets. Exactly. They want to know where all our weapons are before we surrender them. The question is, why would they need that information if they plan to let us live? Dad stared at the scanner readings Maya had compiled. The pattern was undeniable. The Zelkari were systematically cataloging every piece of human military hardware in the solar system. Maya, if you're right, then tomorrow, ... Tomorrow, after humanity officially surrenders, they'll eliminate every military installation in the system. After that, what's to stop them from doing whatever they want with the civilian population? Ben was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, harder. What do you need me to do? Maya smiled and handed him a rifle. First, we need to talk to Lieutenant Clark. Then, we need to find out which of our people still remember how to fight. As the surrender ceremony approached, Maya Rodriguez made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. While the rest of humanity prepared to raise their hands in surrender, she raised her rifle instead. The surrender ceremony began at exactly noon, Earth time. Maya watched from New Geneva's command center as president. Morrison stood before the massive Zelkuri ship hovering over Washington, D.C. The alien vessel cast a shadow over the entire city, dark and menacing against the bright sky. "People of Earth," Morrison said, his voice reaching every human settlement in the solar system. "Today we take a step toward a peaceful future. Zelkuri have assured us that cooperation will bring prosperity to our species." Maya felt sick watching it. Around her, most of the station crew watched with relief. They believed the crisis was over. Only Ben Hayes and Lieutenant Danny Clark understood what was really happening. Danny whispered, "I'm picking up massive energy readings from the Zelkari ships. They're powering up weapon systems." "How long until they're ready to fire?" Maya asked. "Maybe 10 minutes. On the screen, President Morrison was reading the surrender agreement. Humanity would disarm completely. All military installations would be transferred to Zelkari control. Human governments would be dissolved and replaced with Zelkari administrators. "We have 10 minutes, Maya said to Ben. "After Morrison signs that paper, they'll start killing anyone who might fight back." "The whole crew is watching the ceremony," Ben replied. "How do we get them to safety without causing panic?" Maya thought quickly. "Danny, can you trigger a false meteor alert? Something that would require everyone to move to the emergency shelters?" "But people will figure out it's fake when no meteor hits. By then it won't matter." Danny's fingers flew over his controls. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. His voice echoed over the intercom system. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Large meteor detected on collision course with New Geneva. Everyone report to emergency shelters immediately." The crew moved quickly and efficiently. They had practiced this drill dozens of times. Within 5 minutes, most of the station's population was safely underground in the reinforced shelters. Maya, Ben, and Danny remained in the command center. On the main screen, President Morrison was signing the surrender document with an ornate pen. The moment his signature was complete, alarms began screaming from every sensor array. "Here it comes," Maya muttered. The first target was Luna Base, humanity's primary military command center. The Zelkari ship above it fired a single beam of crimson light. The entire base simply vanished, vaporized in less than a second. 2,000 military personnel died without knowing what hit them. Mars' defense platform was next, then the Jupiter. Fleet yards. One by one, every major human military installation was erased from existence. The Zelkari worked methodically, consulting their scans to ensure they missed nothing. "My God," Ben whispered. "They're murdering everyone who surrendered." On Earth, President Morrison was staring up at the Zelkari ship in confusion. He was saying something into his communicator, probably asking why Luna Base had gone dark. Alien ship above him began to glow. "They're going to kill him too," Danny said. Maya was already moving. Danny broadcast on all emergency frequencies. "Tell every human military unit still alive that surrender equals death." Ben, help me get to the mining platform. "Maya, what are you planning? Something stupid?" New Geneva was primarily a mining colony, extracted rare metals from Europa's crust using powerful industrial lasers. These lasers were designed to cut through solid rock, but Maya had a different idea. She reached the mining control room as the Zelkari ship over Earth fired. President Morrison and his entire diplomatic team vanished in a flash of red light. The ship then turned toward other government buildings, systematically destroying every symbol of human authority. "Can we retarget the mining array?" Maya asked. Kate Johnson, the station's chief engineer, Kate looked confused. "Target what? Maya, what's happening?" "I heard alarms and then everyone disappeared into the shelters. The Zelkari just murdered every human military leader in the solar system," Ben explained quickly. "Maya thinks we can fight back." Kate stared at them in shock. "Fight back? Against those ships?" "Maya, our mining lasers are designed for cutting rock, not space combat." "How much power can you route to the main array?" Maya asked. Kate ran calculations on her tablet. "If I reroute power from life support and artificial gravity, maybe enough to cut through a ship's hull. But Maya, we'd only get one shot. After that, they'd know where we are. One shot might be enough." Maya studied the tactical display. A smaller Zelkari vessel was approaching New Geneva, probably to verify that the mining station had no military value. It was alone, separated from the main fleet. Kate, how long to retarget the array? 5 minutes, maybe less. Do it. As Kate worked frantically at her controls, Maya watched the approaching ship. It was smaller than the massive vessels over Earth and Mars, but still larger than anything humans had ever built. It moved slowly, almost casually, running detailed scans of the station. Maya, Ben said quietly. Even if this works? Even if we destroy that ship, what then? There are hundreds more. Then we prove they can be killed, Maya replied. Ben, for the past day, every human in the solar system has been thinking these Zelkari are gods, unstoppable, invincible. But look at that ship. It's approaching alone with minimal shields, running passive scans. They're not expecting resistance, because every other species they've conquered surrendered completely exactly. They've never fought anyone who hit back after surrender. They don't know how. Kate looked up from her controls. Ray is ready. But Maya, I need you to understand something. This mining laser has never been tested as a weapon. It might not even penetrate their hull. Only one way to find out. The Zelkari scout ship was now within optimal range. It hung motionless above New Geneva, scanning the station's industrial facilities. Maya could see its smooth black hull through the command center's windows. Firing, Kate announced. The mining laser was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediate. A section of the alien ship's hull began to glow cherry red, then white hot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the entire vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. We got it, Danny shouted. We actually got it. Ben was staring at the debris field in amazement. Maya, you were right. Their hull armor couldn't handle sustained industrial-grade laser fire. But Maya was already thinking ahead. Kate, you record the laser frequency and power settings we just used? Already done. Danny broadcast that data on every emergency frequency. Include a full tactical analysis of the attack. Make sure every human settlement receives it. Maya, what are you doing? I'm teaching the human race how to kill Zelkari. Over the next several hours, Maya's broadcast spread across the solar system. Hidden mining stations, industrial platforms, and even civilian facilities began experimenting with improvised weapons. On Ceres base, engineer Alex Turner used mining charges to destroy a Zelkari patrol ship. On Titan, Colonel Rick Stone converted a mass driver into a railgun and took out 2 enemy vessels. But the Zelkari were learning too. They began attacking any human facility that showed signs of resistance. The space around Europa filled with wreckage from destroyed ships and stations. Maya, Ben said, monitoring communications from across the system. We're getting reports from everywhere. Humans are fighting back, but the casualties are enormous. Maya nodded grimly. The price of freedom is always high, Ben, but look at what's happening. 6 hours ago, humanity was on its knees, ready to be slaughtered. Now we're making them pay for every human life they take. A new voice crackled over the emergency channels. It was Commander Amy White from Titan Base. This is Titan Command to all human forces. We've established a resistance network. New Geneva Station, your tactical data saved hundreds of lives today. We're coordinating a system-wide counterattack. Maya smiled for the first time since the invasion began. Ben, do you know what the most dangerous thing in the universe is? What? A cornered animal with nothing left to lose. Zelkari had made a critical error. They had assumed that humanity, like every other species they had conquered, would accept defeat once their leaders were dead and their military was destroyed. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, human rage, as night fell over New Geneva. Maya stood once again at the observation deck. But now, instead of Jupiter's peaceful glow, she watched the flashes of battle across the solar system. Humans were fighting back with whatever they could find, turning their own industrial infrastructure into weapons of war. The Zelkari had come expecting easy conquest. Instead, they had found something they had never encountered before, a species that became more dangerous when pushed to the edge of extinction. Maya raised her rifle and checked its ammunition. The real war was just beginning. 3 weeks after the surrender ceremony, Maya Rodriguez had become something she never expected, the leader of a rebellion. New Geneva Station now served as a command center for human resistance forces scattered across the solar system. The main conference room buzzed with activity as resistance leaders appeared on screens from across human space. Commander Amy White spoke from her hidden base on Titan. Colonel Rick Stone reported from the asteroid belt. Engineer Alex Turner had established a mobile fleet using converted cargo ships. "What's our current status?" Maya asked, studying the tactical displays that covered every wall. "We've taken out 43 Zelkari ships," Amy reported, "but they're adapting. They're no longer sending single scouts. Now they travel in groups of 3 or more. They're also targeting civilian populations," Rick added grimly. "Yesterday they destroyed the farming colony on Vesta. 800 people, including children. They're trying to break our will to fight." Maya felt anger burn in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "Any word from Dr. Sam Parker?" "He's still analyzing the wreckage from the ships we've destroyed," Alex said. "Says he might have found something important." As if summoned by his name, Dr. Parker's face appeared on another screen. The elderly scientist looked exhausted but excited. "Maya, I need to show you something. Can you route secure video to your main display?" "Go ahead, Sam." The wall screen filled with images of alien technology. Strange crystalline structures pulsed with inner light, connected by networks of gleaming metal threads. "This is the control system from a Zelkari command ship," Sam explained. "Notice these crystal formations? They're not just computers, Maya. They're quantum entanglement networks. Every Zelkari ship is connected to every other ship through these crystals." Ben Hayes, who had become Maya's second in command, frowned at the display. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they share information instantly across any distance," Sam continued. "When one ship learns something, they all learn it. That's why they adapted so quickly to our mining laser attacks." "Oh, but there's more," Sam said, his voice growing excited. "The system has a weakness. These networks require command nodes to function. Destroy enough command ships, and you can cause a cascade failure across their entire fleet." Maya leaned forward. "How many command ships are we talking about?" "Based on the fleet compositions I've observed, probably 1 command ship for every 10 regular vessels. In this system, that means maybe 30 command ships total." "Sam, how do we identify a command ship?" "They're larger. They stay near the center of formations, and they emit a specific quantum signature that I can teach your sensors to detect." Maya turned to her team. "How many command ships have we destroyed so far?" Amy checked her records. "Maybe 3 or 4? We weren't specifically targeting them, so that changes now," Maya said. "New priority for all resistant cells. Command ships only." "Sam, how quickly can you distribute the detection protocols?" "I'll have the data transmitted within the hour." After ending the conference, Maya found herself alone with Ben in the observation lounge. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the distant glow of Jupiter. But now it was often interrupted by the flash of weapons fire as battles raged throughout the system. "Maya," Ben said quietly, "I've been monitoring Zelkari communications. They're frustrated. Their military doctrine doesn't account for this kind of resistance." "What do you mean? Every other species they've conquered followed predictable patterns? Formal military resistance, then surrender, then compliance. Have protocols for dealing with armies, governments, organized opposition. But they don't know how to handle civilians turning cargo ships into bombers or miners using industrial equipment as weapons." Maya nodded. "We're fighting a kind of war they've never seen." "Exactly. And it's making them angry. I think they're planning something big." Ben's prediction proved accurate. 2 days later, the Zelkari launched their largest offensive yet. Instead of hunting individual resistance cells, they began systematic bombardment of every human settlement in the outer system. Maya watched in horror as reports came in. The research station on Io destroyed. The mining colony on Ganymede gone. One by one, human outposts were being erased from existence. "They're trying to force us into a conventional battle," Amy said during an emergency conference. "They want us to group our forces together so they can destroy us all at once." You can't let them keep slaughtering civilians, Rick argued. Have to do something. Maya studied the tactical situation. The Zelkari had concentrated their main fleet around Earth, daring the resistance to attack. It was clearly a trap, but thousands of human lives hung in the balance. We're going to hit them, Maya announced. Maya, that's suicide, Ben protested. They have over 200 ships around Earth. We might have 30 vessels that can actually fight. Sam, how many command ships are in that fleet? The scientist consulted his data, at least 15, maybe 20. I smiled grimly. Then that's our target. We're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We just need to take out enough command ships to trigger a cascade failure. How do we get close enough? Alex asked. They'll see us coming from millions of kilometers away. Kate Johnson, who had been quietly working at her engineering station, looked up. What if they didn't see us coming? Everyone turned to look at her. Explain, Maya said. I've been studying the wreckage from Zelkari ships we've destroyed. Their sensors are incredibly advanced, but they work by detecting energy signatures and mass displacement. What if we could mask those signatures? You're talking about stealth technology, Amy said. Humans have never developed anything like that. Not stealth, Kate corrected. Camouflage. The asteroid belt is full of debris from destroyed human stations. What if we hit our ships inside that debris, made ourselves look like wreckage instead of active vessels? Maya felt excitement building. Kate, how quickly could you modify our ships? Give me 48 hours and every engineer in the Resistance network. The plan was audacious and desperate. Resistance ships would hide inside the debris field that now surrounded Earth, the wreckage of destroyed human installations. Would drift with the debris, powered down and cold, until they were close enough to strike at the Zelkari command ships. Maya would lead the attack personally. Aboard a converted mining vessel that Kate had disguised as part of a destroyed space station. Ben insisted on coming with her, along with Danny Clark and a crew of volunteers, as they drifted through the debris field toward Earth.
Ow.
Maya couldn't help but feel the weight of what they were attempting. If they failed, organized human resistance would collapse. The Zelkari would hunt down the remaining survivors one by one. Contact, Danny whispered. Zelkari patrol, 2,000 meters off our starboard side. Through the porthole, Maya could see the sleek alien ship gliding past. Its sensors swept over their vessel, but the readings showed nothing unusual, just another piece of debris from humanity's destroyed civilization. Target identified, Kate announced. Command ship, bearing directly ahead. Range 500 meters. Daya took a deep breath. Around them, 30 other human vessels were drifting through the debris field, each one targeting a different command ship. The fate of humanity rested on the next few minutes. All ships, this is Maya. Attack in 10 seconds. Remember, we only get one shot at this. Countdown seemed to last forever. Maya thought about Ben, about all the people counting on them, about the children who had died on Vesta. Attack, she whispered. 30 human ships suddenly came alive in the debris field. Mining lasers, improvised railguns, and converted missile systems all fired at once. The Zelkari command ships, caught completely by surprise, began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. Target destroyed, Kate shouted. Moving to secondary target, but the Zelkari were already responding.
Okay, regular ships were firing into the
debris field, trying to hunt down the human attackers. Maya's ship shook as enemy beams passed close by. Maya, Ben called out. We've lost contact with 7 ships. Zelkari are adapting faster than we expected. How many command ships have we destroyed? 12 confirmed kills, maybe more. Maya made a decision that would haunt her forever.
Oh, ships.
Continue the attack. Don't stop until every command ship is destroyed or we're all dead. The battle raged for another 10 minutes. Human ships emerged from their hiding places too. Fire then tried to escape before return fire could find them. Some made it. Others died in flashes of light that briefly outshone the stars. When it was over, 17 human ships had been destroyed, but 23 Zelkari command ships were gone. Maya. Sam's voice came over the radio. I'm detecting massive system failures across the Zelkari fleet. The cascade is beginning. All around Earth, Zelkari's ships were going dark. Their quantum networks, deprived of command nodes, were collapsing. Ships that had been coordinating perfectly were now operating independently, confused and vulnerable. "Ben," Maya said, watching as enemy vessels began retreating from Earth orbit. "I think we just taught the galaxy something important." "What's that?" "Never underestimate a species that refuses to surrender." But as Maya watched their victory unfold, she also saw Ben clutching his chest, blood seeping through his uniform. Zelkari beam had found its mark after all. "Ben, stay with me," Maya said, applying pressure to his wound. 6 months after the battle at Earth, Maya Rodriguez stood in the rebuilt command center of New Geneva Station. The walls were covered with star charts, showing Zelkari positions throughout nearby systems. What had started as a fight for survival had become something much larger. "General Rodriguez," Commander Amy White said as she entered the room. Maya still felt strange hearing that title. The reformed Earth government had promoted her after the victory at Earth, making her the supreme commander of all human military forces. "What's the status of the fleet?" Maya asked. 87 ships ready for departure. We've reverse-engineered enough Zelkari technology to make the journey to their home system. The new vessels are armed with quantum disruptors based on Sam's research." Maya nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. Through the observation window, she could see the memorial wall where Ben's name was carved alongside thousands of others who had died in the war. The victory at Earth had broken the Zelkari fleet in the solar system, but the war was far from over. "Any word from the advanced scouts?" Maya asked. "They reached the Zelkari border 3 days ago. The enemy has fortified their home system with over 1,000 ships. They're expecting us." Maya had known this moment would come. After the Cascade failure destroyed their command network, the surviving Zelkari had retreated to their home system. For months, they had sent messages demanding negotiation, offering technology and resources in exchange for peace. Maya's response had been simple. "You taught us that surrender is death. We're just returning the lesson." Dr. Sam Parker entered the command center carrying a tablet full of data. At 70 years old, he had become humanity's leading expert on Zelkari technology. "Maya, I have the final analysis of their home system. Defenses? Show me." The main display filled with images of the Zelkari homeworld. It was a beautiful planet, covered in gleaming cities that spiraled up into the clouds. But Maya's attention was focused on the defensive grid surrounding it. "They have 3 rings of defense," Sam explained. "Automated weapon platforms in the outer ring, manned battle stations in the middle ring, and their entire remaining fleet protecting the planet itself." "How many ships are we talking about?" Conservative estimate: 1,200 vessels, including their newest command ships, with improved quantum networks. Colonel Rick Stone, who had joined them from the asteroid belt, whistled softly. "Maya, that's 15 ships for every one of ours. Even with our new technology, those odds are impossible." Maya studied the display carefully. "Sam, what do you know about Zelkari psychology? How do they think?" "Based on my research and interrogation of prisoners, they're a highly logical species. Everything they do follows established patterns and protocols. They've conquered 47 different species over the past 1,000 years, always using the same methods, which are overwhelming force, demands for surrender, then systematic elimination of military assets. They've never had to adapt their tactics because no species has ever forced them to." Maya smiled. "And that's still their weakness?" "What do you mean, Sam?" "They're defending their home system exactly the way they would defend against any other species. 3 rings of defense, massive fleets, conventional tactics." "But when have we ever fought conventionally?" Amy caught on first. "You're planning something insane, aren't you?" "Alex," Maya called to the engineer who had been working at a corner station. "Show them what you've been building." Alex Turner brought up new schematics on the display. "Remember how we used mining equipment to destroy their first ships? Well, I've been thinking about what other civilian technology we could weaponize." The screen showed cargo vessels, but they had been modified in ways that made Rick shake his head in disbelief. "Alex, are those what I think they are?" "Asteroid tugs," Alex confirmed. "It's normally used to move space rocks for mining operations. but I've modified them to push much larger objects, like small asteroids accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. You're talking about kinetic bombardment on a planetary scale, Sam said, his voice horrified.
No, Maya corrected.
I'm talking about a siege weapon that no Zelkari protocol can handle. Sam, in all their history, have they ever faced an enemy that used stellar engineering as a weapon? Never. Their defensive doctrine assumes ship-to-ship combat or orbital bombardment. They've never encountered weaponized asteroids. Aya turned. To address the room, here's what we're going to do. The main fleet will approach the Zelkari system openly, following standard attack patterns. They'll position their defenses to counter a conventional assault, and while they're focused on our fleet, Amy asked, Alex's asteroid tugs will be approaching from the opposite direction, pushing a collection of space rocks that will look like natural debris until they reach attack velocity. Maya, Rick said slowly, you're talking about destroying their entire home system. No, I'm talking about giving them the same choice they gave us. Surrender or be eradicated. The plan was audacious beyond anything humans had ever attempted. It required precise timing, perfect coordination, and a level of deception that would have been impossible without the lessons learned fighting the Zelkari. 2 weeks later, Maya stood on the bridge of the warship Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful vessel. Around her, the human fleet prepared for the final battle of the war. All ships report ready, Danny Clark announced. He had been promoted to Maya's communications chief after surviving the battle at Earth. Long-range sensors showed the Zelkari fleet moving into defensive positions, Amy reported from her ship. They're following exactly the pattern Sam predicted. Maya opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is General Rodriguez. In a few hours, we'll either end this war or die trying. Remember what we're fighting for. Shh. Remember what they did to our people. And remember that we've already proven something the galaxy thought impossible. Humans don't surrender. The battle began 12 hours later. Human fleet approached the Zelkari defenses openly, drawing the full attention of their military. As expected, the aliens positioned their forces to counter a conventional assault. First defensive ring. Engaged, Amy reported. They're throwing everything they have at us. Maya watched as human ships traded fire with Zelkari weapons platforms. The losses were heavy on both sides, but the humans pressed forward with desperate determination. Second ring breached, Rick announced. We're taking heavy casualties, but we're drawing their entire fleet out of position. That was exactly what Maya had been waiting for. Alex, report. Asteroid bombardment commencing in 3 minutes, came the reply from the hidden tug fleet. Target Zelkari Command Center on the planet's surface. Maya opened a communication channel to the Zelkari fleet. This is General Maya Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. You have 3 minutes to surrender unconditionally. The response came. From the Zelkari High Command itself. Human Commander, you cannot threaten our homeworld. Our defenses are impregnable. Look at your long-range sensors, Maya replied calmly. She could imagine the panic as Zelkari sensors detected the incoming asteroids. Rocks the size of mountains, accelerated to incredible velocities, were now minutes away from impact. You cannot do this, the Zelkari commander said, his voice shaking. We offer you anything. It's technology, resources, a place in our empire as equals. Maya thought of Ben Hayes, of the children who died on Vesta, of President Morrison vaporized during a surrender ceremony. You taught us that surrender is death. We're just returning the lesson.
Wait.
The Zelkari commander said desperately. We surrender. Complete surrender. We yield to human authority. Maya felt no satisfaction in the moment. Only exhaustion and the weight of all the lives lost. Alex, abort the bombardment. All human forces cease fire. The war ended not with the destruction of the Zelkari homeworld, but with their complete capitulation. For the first time in their history, they had encountered a species that fought harder when cornered, that became more dangerous when desperate. Maya accepted their surrender aboard the Defiance, in a ceremony broadcast across both human and Zelkari space. The alien leaders, beings that had conquered dozens of species, knelt before a human general who had started the war as a simple military advisor. But victory felt hollow. Maya returned to Earth a hero, but she carried the weight of every decision. Every life lost, every moment when she could have chosen differently, she retired to a small farm in Montana. Far from the rebuilt cities and the monuments to human victory, the rifle she had carried through the war hung above her fireplace, no longer a weapon but a reminder. One day her young niece Sarah came to visit. The girl was 8 years old, born after the war ended, growing up in a galaxy where humans were feared and respected. "Aunt Maya," Sarah asked, "why do you keep that old gun?" "The war is over." Maya looked at the rifle, then at her niece. "Because, little one, the universe is full of those who mistake our desire for peace as weakness. And sometimes, when others raise their hands, someone needs to raise a rifle." Sarah didn't understand yet, but someday she would. Someday she would learn that freedom isn't given freely, that peace must sometimes be defended with violence, and that humanity's greatest strength was not its ability to make war, but its refusal to accept defeat. Maya Rodriguez had started the war as one woman with one rifle, standing against impossible odds.